Hi, everybody. This is Deb and Jay from Real People, Real Stories Raw. And today we have an amazing guest named Cristie coming on. And she has such an incredible, strong story about addiction, abuse, sexual trauma, codependency, and failed relationships. She's been through a lot, and she's here to share her story and how she got through it and how she's helping others now to get through their trauma. So I just want to warmly welcome you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. And in fact, my name is Jay Rothman, and I'm excited to be here with both Debbie as the co-host of the show and with Cristie coming in from one of my favorite parts of the Pacific Northwest. Today, Cristie is actually joining us from Bend, Oregon, an absolutely beautiful community in Central Oregon. I've spent many a times there over my career when I was living up in the Pacific Northwest myself for summer meetings and business meetings, I should say, and took my family there a number of times, did some tubing and down the river in Bend. And so it's a space that's close to my heart and memories of good times. But in any event, Debbie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent today. Really good, actually. I just did my meditation and woke up. It's bright and sunny here, and it's just beautiful. So I'm really, really, really excited to have Cristie on and share her story with us.
Beautiful. And Cristie, as Debbie said, welcome to the studio. I shared with you before we went live that I have read your bio at least 3 times now, maybe 4. And it just really hit me on so many levels. There are a lot of points that you shared that resonate with myself and my own experience in life and some of the challenges and traumas and wounds that I had to work through. And so this particular topic, your story, is really close to my heart. And what I would like to just say is this, is that Debbie and I work really hard to create a safe space and place for you to come forward and share what you are comfortable sharing as part of your backstory. If at any time something should pop up in a question that you are uncomfortable with, you can feel free, you can feel comfortable to set a loving boundary with Debbie and I, and just let us know that in this moment you're not comfortable to go there in conversation, and we will love you for that and respect you. Secondly, I would just like to take a brief moment to welcome those that are joining us live in the show and this live streaming broadcast on Facebook. If you are here live with us and you hear something that you like or love, gently with love, press the like or love button on your device. And if you hear something and you want to comment or ask a question, feel free to do so. If you are coming in on a replay, you just showed up on time. You're never too early and you're never too late. You just show up when it's the right time for you. And we appreciate you showing up and investing the time with us. And so with that, I'd like to invite you, Cristie, to begin to share where it feels right for you. And we'll just go from there. It's an organic, natural flowing conversation, one where it's a no judgment zone. This is a no judgment zone. Debbie and I have been on your side of the screen, and so we would like you to have the opportunity to have the same type of experience that we both have had. And so without further ado, Cristie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I am so grateful for you guys having me on and giving me a space to share the story, and hopefully those who need to hear it will gain some healing from it as well. So, gosh, where to start? Just a little bit of my backstory. Let's see, my father struggled with addiction, with alcoholism for most of my childhood, and through adulthood. There has been a lot of alcoholism and such in my family. And growing up through teenage years and such, I tried to make it a point to stay away from alcohol. Unfortunately, I fell into some other traps with pill addiction, codependency, those types of things. And let's see, not sure where to go with that.
Just take a breath. I was going to ask a question, but I forgot what the question I was going to ask. But how have you come out of the addiction? So you were addicted. How long were you addicted for?
So I was addicted to pain pills specifically, off and on for 8 years.
Wow.
A lot of what went into that addiction was my perfectionism tendencies, people pleasing behavior, and things just kind of piled on and on by saying yes to everything and wanting to show up in a perfect way and do everything that I could for everyone as means of finding love, because there was such a deep hole in loving myself.
Mhm.
So things just piled on so much that I started taking pain pills. I was feeling so much pain in my body, just from not living my truth, not honoring myself in moments where I needed to set healthy boundaries. And that just spiraled out of control. It was a really slippery slope.
Wow. How did you first of all find out that you had a problem, and then actually not just find out, but like be aware that it had to change, and what did it take for you to change that?
Sure. So, about 9 years ago, I started having some back pain and all over body pain, and went through this 2 year process of being diagnosed with what ended up being fibromyalgia. And it's funny if we get into like the more metaphysical side of this, where pain in the body stems from and what that's linked to in different areas of our life where we're not honoring ourselves. Now I know that. At the time, I did not know that though. So I just thought I had this autoimmune disease, and started it with a prescription from my doctor. And it just kind of went from there. I would go through the prescription from my doctor, and then I would find them elsewhere. And it just really spiraled.
Wow, that must have been kind of scary for you, hey?
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
you have children or?
I did at the time. Yeah. I had one, and now I
Oh,
have three. So,
oh,
yeah.
I'd like to take a moment here. You shared with us that your dad was an alcoholic. From my understanding, I believe he's since passed away. Uh,
Not my biological father, no.
okay. Uh, but what I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about, if you may, is you mentioned codependency, and I'm interested to learn more about where do you think that stemmed from, and how did that affect your life?
Hmm. So the codependency, oh geez. Um, it's really interesting to think about where that had stemmed from. Um, let's see, my mother and father divorced when I was 2.5, and about 2 years later, she met the man who raised me, who has since passed. I was raised in a blended family, and a lot of times felt very left out because I was raised with his kids. Um, and I think a lot of that just came from people pleasing, from um, needing to find love from other people rather than giving it to myself. And I think that's really where codependency kind of comes from, is that self
mhm.
love. I need you to fulfill what I can't give myself. So a lot of it, I think, just stemmed from childhood, from not from being shamed for certain things, shamed for feeling emotions. It was safer to put myself in situations where I was being controlled, or where people were telling me how to live, how to feel, um, how to go about day to day life.
Hmm. And how are you coping right now with that? Like, so it seems like you've released the codependency. Now you're dependent on yourself.
Yes.
How did you release that?
In the last 6 months, like Jay said, we're in Bend, Oregon, which is 2 hours away from home. We made the decision to, just my three kids and I, to move here. One, to get into a new community, new surroundings, and that helped a lot with my sobriety. And also kind of pushed me into really having to rely on myself, and having to rely on myself. Um, I have had to really focus on self-love and self-care, and it's still a daily struggle. I still struggle with, finding myself doing things that I'm like, wait, that's not from a loving place for myself, and really having to check myself. And I put myself in situations sometimes that I know will trigger me, and I know that those triggers show me places where I'm not showing up for myself, or where I have more healing to do.
That's
I'd like
beautiful.
to, I'd like to just to take a moment here, just to give you just a little bit of a coaching opportunity here. The words we speak are really powerful, and a lot of times we're not aware of specific words that actually keep us in that unhealthy space. And so I'd like to invite you just to consider, instead of using the word struggle, let's switch that to opportunity. Because what I also, if I may paraphrase what I heard you say, is that when you catch yourself. Now, again, I like the word when I have that moment of awareness. See, so awareness and opportunity are really positive, powerful words that change the energy within our body. Behind struggle, when I hear the word struggle, for me, what that means for me in my own healing journey is behind those words is guilt and shame, anger, resentment, blame, regret. And those are all negative, toxic emotions that actually hold me back from the healing process. I love what you said, and it's a great opportunity to really, just the fact that you have the awareness that when you're catching yourself in that moment, that am I doing what I should be doing right now? Is this really good for me? Or is there something else that I could be making a healthier choice? So I just invite you to just change that one word. Let's look at dropping the word struggle, and flipping it to here's an opportunity for growth. Because if we're in struggle, we're still in it, and we don't have to be in it anymore. Just a simple shift can really impact your life today, Cristie.
Absolutely.
How does it feel for you to hear this right now? How does it feel to hear this right now?
It feels good. It's sometimes I think we get so caught up in that moment that we don't catch ourselves in. I mean, that's really just an old pattern.
Exactly.
And I notice a lot when I'm writing, instead of saying, I have to do this, I get to do this.
Yes, I do that all the time. I get to.
Small little language upgrades they make all the difference. So thank you for pointing that out, because I think it's really important. I think there's energy behind that, and
no doubt there is energy behind it. I know so many people that walk around and just in their not awareness saying like, I always struggle with money. Or, do those people ever not struggle with money, or they're going to spend a whole lifetime struggling with money because they're not changing, they're setting themselves up for a continuation of struggle. So I'm really proud of the fact that it shows me that there's a lot of growth there, that you have that awareness. And when you're able to catch yourself, instead of beating yourself up and going, one more time, there I go, I did it again. Instead of going to, wow, what an amazing moment of growth that I'm even having this awareness. And what do I want to do differently in this moment? And instead of beating yourself up, acknowledge how far you have come and come from that space of love, self-love, and then just make a different choice. I asked about the codependency because what I've learned over my lifetime, and it wasn't until the last 40 months or so, 3.5 years, where I really figured it out. What I learned is that codependency, they say, is the root addiction behind all other addictions. Alcohol and drugs and any other addictions that we get hooked into are not the problem. The pills were not your problem. The pills were just a way to numb out, to thinking that you don't want to feel the pain, so you take the pills or whatever your drug of choice may be. That's not the problem. That's just a symptom. The root motherboard of all addictions is codependency. And what's behind codependency is was our inability to know how to take care of ourselves, how to love who we are, regardless of what other people think, and build self-esteem and self-confidence to that, and learning how to take care of ourselves through self-care. And once we have that awareness, it really starts to take our healing into overdrive, into high drive. It goes a lot quicker once we really understand and start to experience what healthy self-care choices can look like. Are you open to share what that looks like for you today? Like what have you experienced? What type of self-care have you honed in on that perhaps I'm hoping you have, that feels good? And what does that look like for you today? And how has that helped change your life?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So self-care for me has been kind of an off and on. There are periods of time where I'm really good, I'm really focused. I wake up early in the morning and I meditate and journal, um, eat well, make sure I'm drinking a lot of water. You know, the things that we know we're supposed to be doing. And then there are times where I have to remind myself to get back up and start doing it again. Um, but you know, I would say those are my biggest self-care practices, are just checking in with my body. If I have any pain or discomfort coming up, that's always linked to something else. You know, I've noticed that back pain in, I think it's Lois Hay's book, Heal Your Body, back pain is linked to a fear of moving forward.
Hmm.
So I really check in with different areas of my body that start to hurt or give me discomfort, and see what that's linked to, and it is always linked to something that's going on in my life currently, or somewhere I'm holding back, or somewhere I'm sitting in fear, or something that has come up that I, you know, have an old shame around. So it really has given me an opportunity to look deeper into that. And then, you know, really trying to focus on nutrition and hydrating myself, and um, giving myself space to clear my mind through meditation, um, energy movement. Sometimes I'll just go on a drive and sing because I need to move that energy, or I'll just get that childlike urge to dance. You know, kids will just get up and start moving their bodies, and you know, as adults, it seems we've been conditioned to think that that's odd, but it's not. They just have energy that needs to move, and I think that we have that too if we give ourselves permission to do that. So a lot of it's just really slowing down. I went so quickly for so many years and numbed all of those feelings out. Now it's just about slowing down and really honing in on what's coming up for me in the moment, where I can give myself more love, where I can move energy, where I can process some feelings on paper, or writing and sharing something on social media that might help somebody, where I can give back. Yeah.
I completely understand you with the you were a single mom. I'm a single mom. You just get into a pace of you think you have to think 10 steps ahead, and well, you're at the first step, which is first thing in the morning. So you're already overwhelmed by the time your eyes open and wake up, and you're constantly going, and you're always 10 steps ahead, but really you're you're not there because you're right here and now in the moment, so you feel rushed. And I completely understand the feeling of being overwhelmed, but also after you're able to come back to yourself and like calm the F down, I like to say, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, right here, right now is the only thing that matters. And that's really awesome that you like 3 kids is a lot of steps ahead, because I have 1 kid and it's 10 steps. So it's probably times 3 for you.
Yes.
How old are your children, Cristie?
So my youngest is 3.5. My only son turns 7 in a few days, and then my oldest is 10.
Oh, wow. My
Wow.
oldest is
We're
10
pretty
as
young.
well.
Yeah.
How are you able to juggle being a single mom and uh, be present for your children, yet create and carve out time for your own self-care. How difficult is that, and or how have you found the balance in achieving that?
Hmm. Every day that balance changes. I have to make minor adjustments all the time because they're always shifting too. So um, there are weeks where everything runs really smoothly and I'm really able to just stay along the path of self-care and giving myself that time. And then there are weeks that they're all sick and they all have more needs and I have to give more of myself. Or I have to make adjustments in, I couldn't do this morning, or oh shoot, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I haven't eaten yet. I should probably do that. And just reminding myself that I should come first. It's something that I've done a lot of work on, a lot of coaching around. Um, I have a lot of people reminding me, you're not loving yourself, you're not me to put myself first.
Yeah.
But it's really not. And that's been a hard pill for me to swallow, is if I'm not taking care of myself, I'm really not taking care of anyone.
Yep. No, I completely understand that. And with meditation, I will just, if I need it, my time, I'll just tell my son, I said, I need to meditate right now. He's like, okay, I understand. But before it was like, what, you're taking time away from me, kind of. And I had to actually let him know that this is my time, and now he meditates with me. So it's just, you're the example. And if you're rushed all the time, they're going to be rushed all the time because we're their normal. That's our example is their normal. So
I want to piggyback on what you just said, Deb. Just paraphrase it slightly different, which is this: is that as our responsibility as a parent goes with our children, ultimately we are their teachers and we are their mentors. And what we don't realize is that it's our actions that they're paying more attention to than our words. And if we're teaching them that we don't matter and they're more important, we're setting them up for their own struggles of not understanding how the number one person in their life is themselves, is their own well-being, their own self-care. And it's also potentially setting them up for codependent behavior. It's about teaching our children. We have a choice as a parent. We have a responsibility. And if we just keep that in the back of our mind, we can shred the limited belief system that we're being selfish. We can mentor and teach our children that this is mommy's time because mommy needs to do self-care. And while I'm doing self-care, let's talk about what type of self-care you can be doing while I'm doing mine. And we could mentor and teach our children that there is nothing more important in our lifetime, in our world, than for us taking care of ourselves and showing up for ourselves. Because when we experience that, as I know you have, and I know you have, Deb, we have more to bring to our children. We have more to bring to our relationships, our family members, our partners, our employers, our employees, everyone that we touch in life. We bring the best version of ourselves when we've invested in ourselves, not once a week, not twice a week, but every single day. Because what if today is your last day and you're spending it racing through that 10 item to-do list, taking care of all those things that really, at the end of the day, how important are they? They are not important at all. They could wait. And if today is your last day, if they don't get done by you, they'll probably get done by someone else, or they won't. It's not important. What's important is to be present for the moment, just for today, as though it may be the last day of your life. So if we look at it from that perspective and we change our limited belief system from thinking that I'm a horrible parent, perhaps because I'm taking time for me and I'm not taking care of my child's needs, your children are watching you. And if they see that, they just keep pushing your button and they just keep getting more from you, and they're just sucking all the energy out of you, and you have nothing to give them because you're already running on empty. Eventually, that's what you're teaching them. And then they're going to model your behavior as they become the adult, as they grow up. And so we have an amazing opportunity. Now, I wish, of course, that I had understood all of this when I was raising my own 3 sons. Unfortunately, I hadn't hit my bottom yet. I had to get way sicker and cause more damage in my own family, especially to my 3 beautiful sons, the collateral damage, as I refer to it, before I had my own awakening. But you are in a beautiful space, Cristie, in that your children are young enough. The fact that at your age, you've hit your bottom, and you are in the healing process to come home to yourself, to heal your mind, body, and soul. You have this opportunity to give your children the greatest blessing and gift of their lifetime, and it's not too late. You got it. You caught yourself just in time, girl.
Thank you.
How does it feel to receive this?
In listening to what you just explained, we have gone through, because I was doing that, where I wasn't making those things a priority, and it wasn't just a shift in myself in prioritizing self-care and self-love. It was a shift overall between the four of us. My kids had to shift with that, and it was a learning opportunity for them that it's important for me to be taking care of myself. So, and they would sit back and, throw out demands. I need water, or I need this, and things that they could be doing on their own, and um, not understanding that time was important to me. If I needed to take, a few minutes out to go do some breath work or meditate or whatever it was. And I, was feeding them before I was feeding myself, and which I still do, but I mean, I was feeding them and not feeding myself, is more accurate. Um, but it was like that. And it just continued to get worse. So when I made that shift over a long period of time, it took a long time to shift it, but it had to shift with all four of us.
And the kids are one of the most they're so easy to shift with you when they know it's a healthy shift, and they see that you're calmer and your example. My son, he was really difficult to work with, but they're just your mirror images. So I was really difficult to work with too, right? Until I started actually accepting help and wanting to change, and he saw that, and now he does yoga with me, he meditates with me, he went and got his own meditation app on his phone because he saw the difference, and he's now upgrading too, but it's just because we've made a healthy choice and they want to follow us. We're raising our vibrations and they want to raise theirs too.
Yeah. And I think as moms, it's really hard for us to set those boundaries too.
Oh, so hard. Yeah.
Yeah. What boundaries?
Boundaries, what? Huh?
Right. And I think that goes into codependency.
Yeah, it is completely.
I had really unhealthy boundaries all around, and I noticed that bled through to my kids too. I had no boundaries around my kids, and I think they thrive on boundaries and structure.
They need it. Boundaries, limitations, and what is it? It's the dog whisperer. He's got limitations, boundaries, and I forget there's another one, but it's the same with children. They need boundaries, limitations. That's what they thrive on. And it doesn't mean it has to be a strict rule and you're going to get punished. It's not fear-based. It's just, this is what needs to happen. Mom needs some help. My son takes out the garbage. He shovels the sidewalk. He helps out because we're a team, right? And that a family unit should be a team, not just one person doing all the work and the other benefiting from it.
Yeah. I wanted to add one thing too. About, let's see, it was 4 years ago, my oldest daughter was diagnosed with ADHD. And since we have gone through this shift in the last, really the last year and a half, but the last 6 months is really where things have shifted. She used to come home and have me sit with her to do her homework and would wait until I would give her the answers. And I was literally doing everything for her. And now, since we've made the shift with healthy boundaries and structure, she comes in and sits down and does her work. She used to have one-on-one support with teachers at school. She no longer requires that. So it's interesting to see how the healing in myself has also healed my kids. She is no longer on medication for ADD. And it's just, I think for a long time I had, let's see if I can get this out right. I'm not, you can tell me, Jay, if there's a language upgrade I can do here, but I had some guilt around her diagnosis and felt like it was my fault. And looking back, it was just because we just had really unhealthy systems in the home.
Mm-hmm.
It really came down to our home life. And yeah.
So here's my perspective on this segment that you just shared. Western medicine loves to label everything and everybody with something. And we are a disconnected nation. We are a disconnected universe. I don't believe that your daughter has ADHD. I believe that she was behaving inappropriately and in an unhealthy way because she was in an environment that was toxic. Just like you had fibromyalgia and you had your own, your body was speaking to you.
Absolutely.
And when you shifted and as you have started to make healthy, good choices for yourself, it has started to shift the energy in your own home. And all of a sudden, if you went back to your child's doctor, they probably say, "Oh, she's in remission." And I don't buy that. That's garbage. I don't buy that for a second a day. Yeah, I lived in labels my whole life. I was running to the doctor for those pills. I just wanted to feel better, and I wanted my kids to feel better, and I wanted my ex-wife to feel better. I don't buy labels today. That is just an excuse for continuing and accepting the behavior. I got ADHD, so I blame everything on ADHD, or I have brain fog, or whatever the diagnosis is. We then become that diagnosis because we accept that that's who we are. And I don't accept that today. I accept the fact that we may have behaved a certain way. And I feel the same way about addiction. I had 5 addictive addictions that I didn't do a real good job managing because I was just in pain. And as I started to do the healing work and step out of recovery into healing, my addictions are no longer there. I no longer am obsessed with them. I no longer reach for them because I today have healthy ways, healthy choices that feel way better than any addiction I ever reached for. And so people that want to label themselves even with addictions and say, I'm a pill popper, or I'm an alcoholic, it doesn't work for me today. I just don't. I believe that I had addictive behaviors and I did those things. I'm not denying that I did all those things in those 5 addictions, but I'm no longer an addict because I'm no longer living in that pain, that internal bondage. I'm free today. And therefore I choose not to behave and make bad choices for myself on most days. Meaning I'm human, and sometimes I think I'm doing something that feels right, and it's usually coming from ego and not from the inner soul, the humility. And so sometimes I do make silly mistakes, but the beautiful thing is that when I'm able to acknowledge that and go, you know what? Here's just one more opportunity. I don't like how I feel right now. I don't like this decision I made. A lot of times I could laugh at my behavior and laugh at myself for thinking that was a good idea. And therein lies another level of healing, is that when we could find humor in our own crazy making that sometimes pops through or pops out, and just have that awareness, it's just another beautiful way to forgive ourselves. And as far as you questioning or stating that sometimes you feel guilty, we all have so many things that we've done in our past that have damaged other people, whether it be our parents, our siblings. And by the way, I understand your sister is with us today. She's live. Angela Golubic, is that your sister?
It sure is.
So she's with you right now. And I feel her connection in this moment with us. I haven't met Angela, but I feel her. She's with us for sure. Well, we hurt other people. We hurt friends. We hurt relatives. We hurt spouses. We hurt ex-spouses. We hurt our children. We hurt our parents. We hurt our employers. And most importantly, who do we hurt is ourselves. But here's what I've learned along the path of healing my own mind, body, and soul is that I didn't intentionally ever want to hurt anybody. I was wounded. I was in pain. And part of the healing process is just accepting that that's who I was. And this is what I'm doing today to heal. And when I do make a mistake and when I do hurt somebody else by a choice or decision I make, I could hold myself accountable 100% and acknowledge it and apologize. But behind that apology, I have to be willing to change my behavior. Otherwise, it's just empty words.
The best apology is changed behavior, Dr.
Exactly.
Phil.
Yeah. So I invite you to let go of living in guilt of what was, because just through the awareness of you see how your child's behavior has improved and she is doing so much better. Just shift maybe the idea of gratitude that you had the courage to change. You had the courage to get out of a toxic home, a toxic environment that was causing grave damage to yourself, to your loved ones, and to your ex-partner. And therein lies the gratitude is the gift that you've given to yourself and to your children today. You don't have to live in the damage you caused them, but live in the healthy choices that you are making for yourself and your children today to be the best version of who you are, Cristie.
And I just want to jump in just a little bit because they saw you at your rock bottom. They were there with you, and now they're seeing how much work it does take to change, and it is possible to change, and that they have now changed and how good it feels. So they have both spectrums, which is a gift that you gave them essentially, because now they know what unhealthy looks like. Now they know what taking care of yourself. I left an abusive marriage when my son was 3 because the way that my son was starting to talk to me was exactly how his father was talking to me. And I said, this is not, I'm responsible for this child's normal, which means I really don't want his wife to go through what I had to. And I don't want him to have to go through what his dad's going through. So I made that choice because I said, I'm responsible for their normal, just like what you did. You are responsible. You took responsibility for your behavior, your actions, and they saw that and they see that. And now they have a gauge of unhealthy, healthy, instead of if it was all healthy, they would have experienced it on their own. So you did a service with them too, you know?
Absolutely. And we talk about that a lot. One of them will say, well, our life is so much different than it was because from the outside, our life was amazing. We went on trips, we had all of these things, but on the inside, it really wasn't. And they do remember some of the worst times, and I have to remind them this is part of our healing, and we've gone through all of this, and look where we're at now. We're in this beautiful place. We have collectively as a family come a long way. So
I love what you just said, Cristie, and you're echoing what you shared in your bio. And I reread that paragraph 4 times because it was so powerful. And that what you're doing is you're breaking the cycle. So well, rather than me explain that, will you explain that to those in the community that may not understand what that statement means to you when you say that by the choices you're making today for your children and yourself, how are you breaking the cycle?
Sure. And I actually had this discussion with my mom last night because I wasn't sure if she would hop on the live or not. And, we talk a lot about how things were during my childhood. There were times where she was absent, or I felt that she chose partners over us girls, just different things that happened during my childhood. And we talk about how she didn't know any different. The wounding that she brought into motherhood stemmed from her mother. That stemmed from her mother, or the father wound. So there's this really big part of my process has been healing the mother wound. And that doesn't, it gives a different outlook on the wounding that we have from the way that we feel about our parents from our childhood, and helps us to understand that they simply did the best that they could with the knowledge that they had from their perspective, the way that they saw things, the way that they were raised from, hundreds of years of ancestral wounding.
Exactly.
And it just takes one of us showing up to heal those ancestral wounds. So for me, this is me healing those wounds, which also heals my ancestors' wounds, my mom's wounds, but also for my daughters and for my son and for
Beautiful.
their children. Yeah, thank you.
Wow. That is so powerful. You don't hear that spoken too often. I have not, and I've been at this some time now. That is just so powerful that when we have an understanding that we have an opportunity to break the cycle of linear heritage, like going back hundreds of years from generation to generation. And not only are we breaking it for ourselves, but you're giving a gift to your children. It's the greatest gift that we could give our children. Besides, I mean, it's part of unconditional love, but it's such a powerful gift. I'm going to read something. It's unfortunately it's covering up. Well, it's covering up Deb, so I'm going to take it back down. But I'm
That's
going to just
okay.
no. You spent enough time living in the shadow, and I refuse to have you in the
Thank you,
shadow.
Jay. Thank you.
Right.
I'm only in the light now.
Okay. So this is a comment that I'm going to share, and I'm not going to disclose who it's coming from. I will invite one of you to figure that out. So she says, 2 months, just this week, my 14-year-old has been listening to nighttime meditations on and off, mostly with my urging. She has suffered from anxiety, poor self-esteem that seemed to pop up with puberty. Just today, she said, Mom, I really think these meditations are helping me. She went into some things that she has noticed in herself. I'm gonna add self-awareness, new self-awareness, and she's feeling safe enough to open up to her mom. Now, she goes on to say, now I notice huge in capital letters changes, but for her to notice was just amazing. Who do you think just posted that? Any idea, Deb, or?
I know who it is because I saw you popped up, but so it's not fair for me to guess.
Okay, you
I
saw it?
actually saw it on my end as well.
Okay.
So I
Thank you
felt
for your
all
honesty.
of that when you read it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you feel to hear those words spoken by your sister?
That feels amazing. We just had a conversation last week about healing and ascension. And when I started going through this process and healing my inner child and doing my shadow work and such, we would have these conversations, and it's funny because I remember other people coming to me when they were going through their healing process, and I would be like, you're crazy. It's that when you're from that pre-healing stage, it doesn't make sense. And I remember that her and I having conversations like that, and now watching her go through this process too. Her healing, doing her own shadow work, and hearing what it's doing for her girls also, and how she's showing up differently in relationships. All of it. It's amazing, and it really does. The work that we do on ourselves really affects our kids so much.
Not just our kids though, it's like our community. Like it's a ripple effect. So like your family's affected, your sister, your niece, everybody around you and around them. So it's just a ripple effect just from one person who's choosing themselves, and to heal themselves is healing the family, which is it spreads. It spreads like a ripple, like a ripple in the water. It's just incredible. I've noticed a huge change in my family and the people around me as well, just because I'm choosing to heal my wounds.
Yeah.
And it is a choice.
Cristie, I'd like to ask you, I intentionally wore this shirt today, Choose Forgiveness. I had a lot of choices this morning on what shirt I was going to wear. But something pulled me into picking this shirt, and I haven't worn this shirt in some time now. But I'd like to ask you, where are you in your process of forgiveness? And what does forgiveness mean to you today?
Sure. Oh, forgiveness is a big one. I think as I go through my healing, I take so much more ownership for my position in different relationships and how I showed up with people. Whereas before, it was more of a pointing the finger. How could you do this to me? How this abuse, this narcissistic abuse, what, all of these labels that we drop in the way that people show up with us, but really it's how we're showing up and owning our voice and owning our power. So really forgiveness has come down to forgiving myself for not remembering who I was sooner, carrying the wounds from childhood far too long into adulthood before I was ready to heal them. And it really did take a rock bottom. It really took so many of my relationships unraveling and having to leave a marriage and break up
That's
with
the hardest
family.
thing.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to forgiving myself for that. And I think when we forgive ourselves, that forgiveness all around is there.
It's hard to forgive yourself because we're so used to, well, for me, I should have known better, or I could have done differently. Like in my marriage, I thought it was just me that was a problem. So I'm just like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to counseling. I'm going to go on medication for ADHD. I'm going to go do this, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. It takes two. And it's not a failure when you have to leave a relationship. It's actually a success when you have to really leave a relationship for yourself. You're succeeding in the test because that's a test. Do you value your self-love, or do you value what somebody thinks of you more than yourself?
I'd like to share another perspective on forgiveness, if I may. Deb and I share we have a coaching mentor that we both participate in. I've lost track of how many coaches and mentors I work with today for my own process of healing and continuing to be enlightened by those that have come before me and continue to heal themselves. But we have one in common, and I want to touch on one of the coaching sessions that he did was on forgiveness. Two things that stood out that really helped me moving forward in the forgiveness, let's say the forgiveness ring, is that what was said was, forgiveness is the apology we may never receive. And what's behind that is, I'm going to echo, that's basically echoing what you shared, is that forgiveness first and foremost is for yourself. And secondly, what was behind that statement was really powerful for me, is that if we're able to look at forgiveness, how do we forgive other people when we have been wounded and hurt by their words and their behavior? We go to churches and we go to synagogues and they talk about forgiveness a lot, but there's really no real roadmap on how to get there, from my experience, other than you have to find forgiveness in your heart. Mm-hmm. And that's like, okay, well, I need, give me some points, like give me a roadmap. What does that really mean? And this is what it means for me. And I got this not from a church, not from a synagogue, not from anywhere, but from a mentor and a coach. And that forgiveness today means is when I could look at the pain, the hurt that I experienced from that moment, from that person. And if I could ask myself, what is the lesson that I needed to learn behind this pain, behind this wound, behind this trauma? What was the lesson? And what is the lesson if I haven't figured it out? What did I learn, or what do I need to learn? And when we're able to really sit in that and really go deep dive into, this is the soul work, this is the shadow work, is to understand what were they here to teach me through this pain? And once we understand what that lesson is or was, we have the opportunity to go to gratitude, because through having the awareness of what we just learned from that pain, we get to grow. Because through that pain, through the lesson, there's a really good chance that we will not allow that behavior to be put in front of us again. We will set a healthy boundary for ourselves to protect ourselves from that type of trauma or wound or pain. And so it may sound foreign to you. I'm not sure what I just shared with you, but for me, when I'm able to now look back at every wound that I have had from relationships outside of myself and ask, what was the lesson that I needed to learn? I no longer have to live in the feeling of injustice or the feeling of anger, resentment, blame, even guilt or shame. I could live in gratitude that I learned what I needed to learn. And sometimes it's not that simple. It's going to take some time to figure out what that lesson is. But when we get it, it's a game changer. It really is.
I just wanted to add on that a little bit with Jay Shetty. This is a major three little things that I say anytime there's a speed bump, which I don't like calling challenges or struggles. It's a speed bump because it's just slowing you down. So you slow down so you don't hurt other people or yourself. And that's what you're getting presented with. That's how I like to see it. But the three things I say when a speed bump comes up is, I'm grateful for this moment. What can I learn? How can I grow? You start with gratitude, and then you learn, and then you grow. And you cannot, and I haven't tried to stay in it, but it's almost impossible to stay in the why me perspective if you just go, I'm grateful for this moment. What can I learn? How can I grow? Especially with children. Children can really test your buttons. But if you can just stand there and go, okay, I'm grateful for this moment because the universe doesn't know sarcasm or like the tone. It's okay. I'm grateful for this moment. What can I learn? How can I grow? And then you can see it from a different perspective, and you just come at it and you're like, okay, I'm learning a lesson right now and I'm grateful for it. Thank you. It really helps.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Debbie. That's powerful. The last piece I want to touch on regarding forgiveness and why it's so important for our healing of our mind, body, and soul is that when we hold on to an old hurt, pain, trauma, wound that may go all the way back to our childhood, and for many of us, it does. That person may not even be alive today, yet we're still living in that hurt and pain, that trauma. I refer to that as we're still holding on to the bondage. We're still in bondage of that emotion, that cellular memory that continues to haunt us and keep us in the darkness of the soul, of the night. And what I understand today is that that's why forgiveness is not for that person. It's more for us, because when we're able to go through the exercise of learning how to let go and forgive them, it takes us out of that internal bondage. It takes us out of that. It releases the power, even if they're not alive, even if they're not in our life anymore today, whether they're alive or not, they still have the power over us because we're allowing their negative energy from the wound to hold us tight, stay within us. And when we're able to go to forgiveness and learn what we need to learn and be able to acknowledge and thank them in some way to ourselves for that great lesson, we can release the bondage and now shift into that feeling of gratitude and freedom. And we're no longer living in it. We're free of that power. We release them of that power. They no longer have that power over us. And it works. You know, I could speak from, this is not theory. This is not something I went to school for. You know, I don't have a PhD in psychology to be sharing this. This is just real life, real work stuff that I have had to walk through and continue to, as I find more layers of people, places, and things that have had affected me in my life. Because I no longer want to be powered. I no longer want to have my power taken away by negative, toxic emotions. I want to continue to feel that freedom.
It's wonderful, Jay, and it's the same with me. Like I am free now. I don't I've forgiven myself first and everyone else who contributed to my own damage that I did to myself. Um, Cristie, I just wanted to. I know we're almost at the end of the hour, but I wanted to just kind of go in a little bit more of how you're helping other people from what you've experienced. What are you doing now to help others? Because service to others is the next phase of being able to actually truly be free and heal.
Sure. So most of what I've done up until now is through writing. And I've had quite a few, several women and men too, message me who have been leaving abusive relationships or have needed to do their own shadow work. So through writing, I'm reaching people. That's doing some healing. This is really kind of a next step for me, as stepping into a new arena in showing up energetically.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have plans to do here in Bend, like a women's support group. Yeah, so
That's wonderful.
right.
I would love to introduce you to Lisa. We had her on not too long ago, and she has a group for helping women and women helping women and everyone helping women or each other, not just women, but a group of people helping each other. And I'll get you into that group. But she definitely will be able to help as well with your dream to help others.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You know, Cristie, the work that you've been doing is how we met. I was not introduced to you by any of the people in my community, in our community, through my networking of any kind. One of your blogs showed up on my feed, and I happened to take a moment to read it. And in that moment, that particular blog really touched my heart, touched my soul. And you said just enough to know that I wanted to reach out to you. Now, that's not something I typically do. It's very rare that I read. I don't spend a lot of time reading my feed. I choose not to. But I happened to catch yours, and that's not by coincidence. And then when I read what I read and I decided to reach out to you, I didn't know at the time truly where you were at in your healing journey, and I didn't know that you hadn't done lives before. But I just sensed that we needed to have that conversation. And so even in this situation where by you just putting yourself out there, it connected you and me together. And now here you are today, having just spent an hour with Debbie and I, not only, and we'll touch on that in a moment, not only hopefully impacting your own healing journey, but I am sure that there is one person that will listen to this show live or in replay that will resonate with something you said that may help them on their own path of healing or having the courage to make whatever changes they need to make so that they can begin to experience a new way to live. And so I would encourage you to continue to step into discomfort and push through it and show up for yourself. They say if you're not growing, you're dying. And I know what it felt like to be dying because that's how I was living my life. I was dying emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And then when I had my awakening, I started to experience what living could feel like, you know? And I'm so proud of you. I'm so humbled. And I just want to take a moment just to acknowledge you right now and thank you for showing up today. Not only for yourself, but also for your children, for your sister, for anyone else in your family and friends that pick up the live or the replay. because I know that by you showing up, you inspire others to show up. And then there are those that we don't know who we're touching. Perhaps thousands of people that, of thousands, it may be more than one person that impacts their life. And so I honor you and I respect you and I thank you for that. I want to just give one more moment for a check-in, Cristie, and ask you, now that you're on the back end of the show, how does it feel for you to have shown up today, and what are you feeling like internally right now? What's it feel like
Yeah.
physically?
So, excuse me. First of all, thank you. Thank you for everything you just said. I wanted to mention that when you reached out to me, I had been working with one of my mentors on doing a live in a private group, and I had refused to do this live over and over and over. It was this um, this demon that was eating at me. Like I just couldn't, I would get ready to do it and then I wouldn't do it. And there was something in me that was so terrified to show up in this form. And you reached out to me, and it's just funny how something about that felt very aligned. Um, but it's funny how the universe will make us so uncomfortable and then will um, send us an angel or a guide of some sort to bring us out of that. And when I was fighting that going live in that group, it was such an uncomfortable feeling for me. I was absolutely terrified to do it. So when we started the show an hour ago, my palms were sweaty, just doing, a little physical check-in. My palms were sweaty, my heart was racing, my mouth was dry. I had all of these signs of nervousness going on. Because sharing your story is really hard. And especially, I haven't shared a whole lot about my addiction story or my childhood. I've shared some about codependency and abuse and such, but the addiction, I've kind of stayed off topic because it's really uncomfortable. That's a really scary place to go. So after sharing that, and now that we've been having this amazing conversation for an hour, I feel a lot of freedom in that, and showing up in this form again, and continuing to share that with people who need it. Because at one point, a couple of years ago, I needed to hear that someone else had gone through this, that another single mom had gone through this, or, there's just little bits of everyone's story, I think, that we hear that we resonate with. And I think we're all randomly dropped into each other's lives when we need them the most, just like you dropped into mine, Jay. So
I'm so happy to hear that you're at peace now and you feel free. Once you just rip off the band-aid, right? It's just that temporary fix of a something that you think is fixing it, and you just rip it off, and now you're healing, and it's just going to only continue from here. So I'm so proud of you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Cristie, I'm going to speak on behalf of Debbie and myself and let you know that when you're ready to come back into the studio and do another show with us and maybe deep dive in a little bit more into the areas that you just touched on, you are welcome, whether it be in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 months. It doesn't matter when you show up. What matters is that you show up. Because as you've learned today, is that when we speak it, we release it. When we feel it and reveal it, we get to heal it. And there is not a topic within your life experiences that probably Debbie nor I have not had our own experience of having to walk through and hit some type of bottom of our own. And so you're always welcome to join us. And we would love to have you back on in the near future so that you don't lose momentum and you just keep this going.
Thank you.
How's that sound?
That sounds fantastic. I would love that.
And feel free to reach out to me or Jay anytime if you're struggling with anything. Like honestly, we're connected now, so anything if you need to or have any questions at all, just let us know.
Will do.
our show will be on in the archives. There are some people that joined us late that are in your own personal community, your circle of life. And so even though they may have missed some or part of, they can go back and watch the replay from the beginning, either on Debbie's. Well, it's gonna be on your personal site, for personal page, Debbie's Mind plus Real People, Real Stories, Spirituality Gone Wild, Heal Mind, Body, Soul. There's 5 or 6 different pages within Facebook, and I will also rip an edited version through YouTube in case you have family members or friends that want to watch it that are not on Facebook. I will send you the show from YouTube, my YouTube channel, so that you could push it out. They could just click through the YouTube website. Why don't we invite you, Cristie, just to maybe take a moment here and share some closing thoughts. Maybe there's one person that needs to hear something that you have to say that will help them begin their healing journey, or give them the courage to make some changes in their life that will bring them some inner peace and contentment. And then we'll invite Debbie to do the same.
Okay. One really important piece that has come up for me over and over is I'll get to this point and I'll think, excuse me, I'll think, oh, good, I've reached that point. I've hit that spot in my healing where everything's going to feel easy. The moment I have that thought, everything crashes down again. So I guess my words would just be to keep going, to keep pushing through that. Those moments where it feels like everything is crashing down, those are important moments. Those are important moments to look inward and see how we're showing up with ourselves, how we're showing up in our relationships, where our boundaries are, where we're not loving ourselves enough, and to push through those hard times. And it doesn't matter how much healing you go through. For myself, there's been a lot of healing, and there are still moments where it feels like everything the walls kind of close in on me. And those are the most, those moments have more growth than any other moments, I think, just like hopping on this life. Those really uncomfortable moments, push through those.
And now you've done it, and you're accomplished now, and you feel free now instead of trapped,
Yeah.
and that's amazing.
Yeah.
Deb?
I would just, yeah, I just first want to say I'm just so proud of you for coming on, and you showed up, and you gave what you felt comfortable doing, and we completely respect you, and I completely respect for how far you came. It's not easy. And I would just like to say to anyone watching that the true growth comes from feeling it and allowing it to come, and then revealing it. You don't have to come on alive to reveal it. You can journal it. That's revealing it too. It's just releasing it somewhere else other than keeping it inside. And then you can start to heal from it. So just feel it, allow it to feel it, reveal it, and then heal it. And those 3 things will help you grow and get out of your own personal hell that we put ourselves in. For some reason, we just like to sit in our shit, I guess. Sorry for the swearing, but we like to sit there sometimes, and now we can move out of it. So
Thank you, Deb. Here's my final thoughts. First and foremost, again, Cristie, you are a beautiful woman. You are brave. You have nothing but pure, authentic, unconditional love in your heart and soul.
Thank you.
Are you okay to receive that? What are you feeling right now?
I am receiving all of that. Thank you.
Okay. You're a beautiful mom. You're a beautiful sister. And you are an amazing daughter. Whether you feel that way or not, I give you permission to just receive these words, accept them, embrace them from a space of humility, and just keep showing up. Because when you keep showing up, your life will get better every single day. And if you could stay in the studio maybe for 10 minutes for us to do a more intimate wrap, I'd really appreciate that. And after, if you have time in the next 24 hours or so, if you could go back through Facebook and acknowledge some people and comment, answer any questions or that pop resonate for you from the comments, that would be beautiful. And here's my closing thoughts on the show today: is that we all have a story to tell. We all. I don't know that I've ever met a person that has come through life without wounds, traumas, and pains that have affected their life. And we have a choice. We either can live in pain or we can feel the pain. I spent 54 years living in pain, and I didn't know that there was a difference until I hit my rock bottom. And what I've learned through the process of having the courage to show up for myself for the first time in my life and start the healing work is that I no longer have to live in the pain. I can just feel it. And when I feel it, oh boy, it's a beautiful feeling. I don't ever want to be numbed out anymore by any of my addictions that owned me, that had power over me. Today, I choose to feel. And so when I got a little emotional today, it's not emotions of sadness. It's not emotions of anger, resentment, guilt, shame, blame, regret. It's emotions of pure gratitude for how I feel on most days, even when life gets difficult. And so if you have a story to share, and if you are somewhere along your healing journey, whether you're at the beginning or you're in the middle, anywhere where you're at, if you want to come on and share your story, please reach out to Deb and we will allow you to step forward and share, because what we've learned is that through our sharing, it is another layer of healing. And then we get to pay it forward, and we get to pay it forward and forward. And it just keeps going and going. And so with that, thank you for joining us today. Deb, close us out.
Namaste. I'm just so thankful, first of all, that we have this platform that we can help others to be able to actually heal from it. Without this, I just feel like this is so natural for me, and I'm just so grateful that we have this platform, that Jay actually came to me and asked me to do the show with him. And now we can help. I've met so many amazing people, including you, Cristie, and we'll continue to be friends, and just keep moving forward. I guess don't be afraid to take that step, because it's like going down the stairs. There's steps, and you can't be afraid. There's another step. You just have to take that step. And I just want to thank everybody who has taken that step with me and allowed me to grow as well, because every single show I do, I grow from it too. So
yeah, it's healing for all of us. We're in this together. We held each other's hands and came from the space of no judgment and pure love today. And I look forward to continuing the healing journey with you and with the two of you. And with that, thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time on Real People, Real Stories Raw. Thank you.
thank you so much.
Love you all.
Mwah.